Hello. Hey, everyone. Hey, good morning. So, hope everyone's feeling good today on day two, that you weren't up partying too late at the Dutch stand last night. And we have a really fantastic panel today. We're going to be talking about innovative new tools to enhance performance monitoring for SDG 11. And we have fantastic speakers to go with it. So, we have a really great range. First of all, we're going to hear from Beatriz Mendoza from UN Habitat to get the perspective of a multilateral. Then we're going to hear from two companies that are also working in this space. So first of all, we're going to hear from Gustavo Maya from Collab, who has been working together with Beatrice on a new implementation. After that, we're going to hear from Laura Kirchner from City Beats, another company who's using technology to also create new ways of collecting data. And then at the end, we're going to hear from Gabriela Ochoa from the municipality of Teresina in Brazil. And Gabriela is going to talk to us about the local government perspective on this. So we should have a bit of a 360 view by the end of today. The way it's going to work is that we're going to do 4 presentations, each around 15 minutes. If it's going a bit long, I'll give you a sign. And then we'll save around half an hour at the end, a few questions here in the panel, and then we'll make sure there's lots of time for you to ask questions as well. So as we're going through, please save them up for the end. So I think we can get started.
Okay.
First of all, we're going to hear from Beatrice, and let's give her a warm welcome.
Yeah. Is it working? Yes? Okay. So I'm going to be over here so I can just see the presentation. As Harry said, my name is Beatriz Mendoza. I work for UN Habitat headquarters in Nairobi, Kenya, and I work for the Research and Capacity Development branch. So today my presentation will be divided into 2 sections. The first section, I'll explain a bit what UN Habitat is doing in terms of data collection and monitoring of the SDGs. And the second part of the presentation, I'll present an experiment project that we're doing in Latin America to provide a different perspective of capacity building and unconventional data collection methods to gather perception of citizens and to involve citizens in the accountability and transparency of local governments. So I'll start. Sorry. Okay, so as we all know, most of the population live in cities, and this is something that will increase by 2030. In 2018, we had 584 cities with over 1 million people, and it is expected by 2030 this will be to 706. With this growth, there come new opportunities to create more sustainable places, but also a lot of challenges for us and for governments and for cities. So we're going to explain a bit of this. As I think we all know, we have the Agenda 2030 and we have the Sustainable Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goals have 17 goals, 169 targets, and 244 indicators. We also know that there's one in particular that focuses on cities and human settlements, which is the goal 11. But it is important to mention that almost the 244 indicators of the Sustainable Development Goals have an impact and they have a connection with cities. That is why it's important to make cities more sustainable, smart cities, and how can we just localize and monitor these things. Also, a third of the indicators are being measured or should be measured at the local level. That is also the relevance to have cities. We understand as a United Nations that the Agenda 2030 might be the most ambitious agenda and attempt that we have set. And we understand that we need to strengthen the partnerships among all the stakeholders, including academia, local governments, national governments, civil society, NGOs. So we created the UN system-wide approach, which it tries to develop new methods of data collection, new methods of doing things to strengthening these partnerships and to coordinate all the efforts. What we don't want is to reinvent the wheel. We want to join forces. There are a lot of initiatives happening and going on, and it is important to just coordinate what we're doing in order to report what is happening. So the system-wide approach has 3 different levels: global level, regional level, and subnational, local, or city level. Country level can be as well. So for us, where does data comes from? As you can see in the map, you can find like all the continents and where the data comes from. Most of them come from national census, but a lot of countries also use DHS, which is demographic and health surveys, and also MIX, which is multiple indicator cluster service. So this is the official data. And what UN Habitat does, it's to help governments to report on this data. We don't produce the data is responsibility of the national governments, but we help them of how to approach and how to gather all this data. If we focus on the SDG11, we realize that we need to find different ways and unconventional methods to collect the data. We need to use technology and we need to use smart systems to do so, because data collection is very costly. And one of the limitations that we have is that we don't have enough money, nor the governments, to collect all the data and to present this. So what are we doing? I'll explain very briefly 4 different initiatives that UN Habitat at the moment are working on: the CPI, NSC, urban observatories, and urban indicators database. So the CPI, or the City Prosperity Index, it's a tool that we developed to assess the prosperity of cities. At the moment, more than 400 cities have been assessed with this tool, and the tool has 6 different dimensions. They have urban governance, environment sustainable, equality and social inclusion, quality of life, infrastructure development, and productivity. With this, what we want to do is that decision makers could have the tools to create public policies tailored to the needs of the cities and to identify where the weakness of the cities are and how to approach and how to address those things. Then we have the National Sample of Cities, which is NSC, that supports the monitoring of SDG11. How does this work? In collaboration with the national governments, we choose cities that can give an overall idea of what is happening at the country level. So the cities, the criteria that we use is number of cities that the country have, the population of the cities, the size of the city, the geographic location, city functionality, economic and political importance. For instance, in Brazil, we have cities as Sao Paulo that have millions of people, but we also have cities that are near the Amazonia that the dynamic is different. So what we're trying to do is to gather cities that with this mix, we can have an understanding of what is happening at the national level, and without using that many resources, that is one of the limitations that we have. With this, we got the global sample of cities, which consists of 200 cities, and that gives us an idea of what is happening on the 70% of the world urban population, only with these 200 cities. Then we have the urban observatories. The idea of the urban observatories is to collect data and to transfer the data into actions. We have 3 levels of urban observatories. We have a regional, national, and local level, and at the moment we're working with 336 urban observatories worldwide. And lastly, we have the Global Urban Indicators database. This is going to be available in mid-December, if I'm not wrong, and you can find it in this link. And the idea is that you can analyze and you can review the data that at the moment we have. You can see the results on the 10 targets of the SDG11, and you can find some conclusions, like for instance, open public spaces are on decline globally. You can also find the situations in terms of slums or housing, basic services, and so on. What challenges do we have? If you can see this table, you can see that we contacted 191 countries, and at the moment, only 30 have responded with the data that we requested, which is only 15% of the total that we asked. The reasons are several. Some of the countries don't have the capacity in terms of like technical people to collect the data. Some of the countries don't have the economic resources to do this, and there are many challenges. So, for instance, in Africa, which is where our headquarters are based, 54 countries were contacted and only 6 have given us the data. So this is a big challenge that we have because we cannot have an overall of what is happening globally if countries don't give us this information. The limitations, as I said, lacking capacity in terms of technicians or technical people. A lot of the indicators need geospatial indicators, and especially countries from the developing countries don't have these tools or this capacity to assess the indicators with these technologies. There are not enough partnerships. We need to improve and we need to enhance partnerships with private sector, with academia, and among all the different levels of government. It is very costly. It is very costly for us. It is very costly for governments to collect data and to do all those things. So these are some of the limitations. So if there is no data or not enough data, if it's too costly and time consuming, if we don't have engagement of civil society, what can we do? And now I'm going to present these unconventional ways of data collection that we are trying to test and that we are working at the moment in Latin America with this project that I explained at the beginning. The project has a terrible name. It's too long. It's Accountability Systems for Measuring, Monitoring, and Reporting on Sustainable City Policies in Latin America. And the idea is to strengthen the accountability and transparency at local level, but engaging the citizens. And the idea is that we want to create co-spaces for co-creation, for dialogue among all the stakeholders in the cities. The project happens in Bolivia, Brazil, and Peru, 2 cities in each country, Tarija and La Paz in Bolivia, Chimbote and Trujillo in Peru, and Rio de Janeiro and Niterói in Brazil. And the project objectives is to build capacity of different stakeholders in terms of reporting, in terms of localizing the SDGs, and in terms of monitoring. The project started in 2017, and we started from the beginning, very the beginning. When we arrived, we realized that a lot of people had no idea what SDGs are, of the new urban agenda and all those things. So we started with capacity building first with these global agendas and how to localize them at local level. Then we train NGOs, we train civil society, academia, private sector, and governments to have a better understanding of these agendas. Then we assess the training needs per city to see where were the challenges that the cities were having and how could we address them. We created labs, that's how we call them, with all the stakeholders. For instance, in Bolivia, we had Cholitas, which is the indigenous groups of Bolivia, participating and expressing their needs in the cities. We have academia and so on, and they develop an action plan. At the moment, we are in the implementation phase of how can we address those initiatives that we propose in the action plan and how the indicators can be measured to see what we did in this time of implementation. As part of the project, we also realized that we need to find different ways to address cities. We have several technologies that we use every day, as the cell phone, as computers, and that we needed to give more importance to those things to reach the most vulnerable groups in cities. So we like to call it disruptive innovation in cities, and we use the 3D approach, which is data, digital, and human-centered design. According to the UN, in India, for instance, more people have access to a cell phone than to toilet and improved sanitation. This is worrying, but it is also an opportunity for us to use these technologies to do something different and to create unconventional ways to collecting data. With this, we created, as part of the project, a consultation that Gustavo will explain, because we're doing it in collaboration, to find the perception of citizens and how they see their cities in terms of the SDG11 transparency and accountability, and how can this data, this quality data, can help decision makers to tailor the public policies and to do it according to the needs of the cities. So I'll leave my presentation till here. There's my email if you have any questions. Thank you so much, and then we continue with the discussion.
Okay, super. Okay, well, thanks so much, Beatrice. Really interesting stuff. We're going to dive into it more in the question section. So yeah, if anyone wants to take a seat, that's standing over there. Now's a good time. And now we're going to go to Gustavo Meyer from Collab to follow up on what Beatrice has been talking about.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Let me come here so I can see the screen, and it's going to be a little bit easier. All right, so that's me. I'm Gustavo. I'm from Collab. First of all, I would like to thank you all for being here. I will start this presentation by talking a little bit of what we do in Collab, and then we get to the consultation that we are doing along with the UN Habitat in Brazil, asking people about their cities. So basically, Collab is an innovation for governments and citizen engagement platform. We started a while ago in Brazil. We believe that engaged citizens, together with open governments, if they work in collaboration, that's the key for better cities for citizens. Basically, in 2013, we saw that there's a huge valley between what people are thinking, what they want in Brazil, and what the government actually can address for them. And as you can see, this is a picture from 2013. That's the Congress building there. And people were, as in many other countries around the world, people were protesting a lot about the government. And so if we saw this valley, we thought, why not build a bridge? And how were we going to build a bridge? It is a social network for citizenship. So it's a social network to get to, everybody here is probably uses Instagram or Facebook or WhatsApp. And so we thought we should bring all these things that people are used to do for the government as well. So it is a social network for citizenship. It's transparent, friendly, with engagement, but in a structured way so we can bring this to the government. Basically, this is not working, sorry. Basically, we have Android and iOS apps and a web platform where you can collaborate, putting pictures and putting a geolocation and posting about a lot of things in the city. For example, a pothole or broken lighting or things like this. You are going to post, and you are always going to see the municipality solving that and responding to you. Everything is open to everybody and very transparent. At the same time, we ask people about their, for this decision-making process for the government. So for example, a participatory budgeting, you are using an app where you can post about things in their city, and the municipality is going to solve that for you. And at the same time, the municipality is asking you about a lot of things. So we started doing a transition between oh my God, this is not working. Here. We started doing a transition between an active citizen to a collaborative citizen. So basically, I'm going to tell you about these three guys here. Leonardo comes from Teresina, which is the city of Gabriela here. Eddie from Santo André in São Paulo, and also Carlos Martins in Niterói. These three guys in their cities, basically they were responsible for more than 2,500 collaborations. Basically, they were posting a lot about their cities. And when we look at the other side, we bring to the government a lot of different tools for them to manage their city with a lot of, let me come back here, a lot of data. Basically, you can see everything that people are posting, you can solve the things, it connects to a lot of different social networks. And then we saw that there's a challenge, of course, of changing the government culture, because people in the government doesn't always want to respond to everything, doesn't want to see everything that is happening in the city. Sometimes it works, it is like this in Brazil. So we started developing some methodologies, workshops and training, just to set up governance, strategical, tactical, and operational things. So, for example, this is in Maceió, which is a huge city in Brazil. You have the mayor here with their secretaries, and there's a person of Collab showing every data that people are posting in the city. The same thing happens in Juiz de Fora, for example. That's another big city in Brazil. It is not working. Oh, Campinas here, another city. And basically, after making all these meetings with mayors, you can see resolution rate going from 28% for 80%, for example. So it's not just about technology, but also about how to manage the city with the mayors. We do gather a lot of information using a lot of KPIs. This is, for example, for one municipality there, you can see how things are going. This is users data, how is going in each department, if they are solving or not. And basically, we started making this happen. For these three guys, for example, those 2,500 posts that they made in Collab, you got 100% responded and more than 75% of all those issues solved by the government. We give voice to people. So basically, this is Carlos Martins going to the TV because they were asking about decision-making process. For example, in Campinas, we ask people, what is the band that you want to be playing in a concert that the municipality is going to make? For example, people go there and decide what band is going to play in a concert that the municipality is just going to do either way. So why not? For example, in Pelotas, the municipality was asking about change lanes of a street, for example. So you also bring people to start deciding about the future of their cities. In Santos, that's a big city in Brazil, we did the participatory budgeting in the app. So basically people had to decide where to put around 10 million reais. This is like $2.5 million. They had over 250 different projects, so people would go there and vote. The same things with the urban planning of Teresina. We used a lot of vans so people could go there and vote on everything. And so you have a lot of data to manage the city much better. This is a lot of examples of data that we collect from people. And for example, we are in more than 100 municipalities today in Brazil, using participatory tools for everything. So today, for example, we are using a lot of gamification to make people and citizens start using much better the city. So for example, if they don't have blood in a blood center, they send a mission to people so they can go there and donate blood. We start engaging a lot more citizens using a platform that looks just like Facebook or Instagram. It's a place where everybody's already knows how to use. So basically, those three guys, they're here. Carlos Martins, Leonardo, and Eddie. They are in the ranking of Brazil. We see citizens as tools to improve cities. Basically, we got a lot of recognitions. So, for example, we were elected the best urban app of the world. A lot of awards from IDB, and that's where we get to the SDGs. So basically, a few years ago, we started looking into the SDGs, and about 1.5 years, we signed an agreement with the UN Habitat to ask people about sustainable cities. So what was that? What is this project? In Brazil, for example, today we have more than 50% of the world's population in urban areas, but in Brazil we have much more. We have almost 85% on that. So we started thinking, let's ask people all over Brazil how they are thinking, how they think their cities actually are. And so how it works, basically, you get your app. We have users in more than 2,000 cities in Brazil, and so we have more than 250,000 users. You get to the app, and basically what you see there is we have a lot of questions asking how you saw your city, how your city is in the past 2 years, about a lot of different things. And when you get to the end, oh my God, this is crazy. I'm sorry, guys. This is not working at all. No, I want to go back. Just leave me, please. All right. So you start voting and saying how your city is, responding to a lot of different questions, and then you get basically to see how it is about habitation, about access to transport, urbanization, impact, public spaces, urban life, and things like this. And you can compare yourself to the response of everybody in your city and also everybody in Brazil. The first edition, basically, it started last year, and we had almost 10,000 participants in Brazil. Most of them are males. Here are the ages, scholarship. But basically, people from 800 different cities all over Brazil responded to this. So as we are a platform that is open to everybody in Brazil, a lot of people from a lot of different cities came onto the platform and started responding. And this is how it looks like for Brazil. So basically, people are saying that about transparency, Brazil is not bad at all. Or actually, their cities are not bad at all. Resilience to catastrophe, like, I don't know how to say that in English. So you have a lot of things about urbanization, life, urban life, and things like this. We did this. 10,000 people participated, and then we wanted to share this with all the mayors and people from all the municipalities. So basically, we did a live webinar. More than 1,000 different public managers went live to watch that. We were together in Brazil, together with Beatriz and Claudio in Nairobi. They are the ones from the UN Habitat. And so it became a book. I have some of these books here.
I also have.
Let me get here. I have. I'm going to get some of this and distribute to you guys. But basically, we have like this whole book here that has everybody's answers. So you have answers from the 10 cities that most of people responded to it. You can see how Brazil thinks about everything in their cities. And we started giving this book to a lot of public managers in Brazil. So this is the Minister of Transparency in Brazil. This is the mayor of Aracaju, the mayor of Recife. We sent basically to the mayors of the biggest cities in Brazil, so they can follow on what people are thinking about their cities. And then the good thing about this is that we started last year, and now we are doing it again. So we are doing every year we are going to ask the same questions to everybody until 2030, asking people about how their cities are. We developed this book and we send to the mayors again and ask people again and do it again, so the mayors and people in the government can actually start changing their cities with the perception of citizens. If you want to come with us, you can talk with us. We are trying to develop better cities for citizens, with the citizens all the time. This is Collab. This is my email address, so if you want to send me an email, just do it. I'm going to get some books there and give to you guys.
I think, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thanks so much, Gustavo. Really interesting stuff and amazing achievements as well. So now we're going to pass to another company, City Beats. And we're going to hear from Laura Kitchener around what's been the approach there to collecting data in new ways for the SDG11.
Thank you very much, Harry. Can you hear me well? Yeah. So thank you very much for the invitation. There were great presentations and very interesting initiatives. I'm going to explain a different approach that we have. And it is that we believe that the millions of citizens' voices that are shared every day through very different channels can be an alternative data source to measure society's needs, very related to the Sustainable Development Goals. And I will also explain you how CityBeats artificial intelligence models can help us understand the topics that are related to the Sustainable Development Goals. That they also adapt and change over time. They are different to every city, and they are expressed in different languages as well. And the whole objective of this is to help governments, cities, and UN agencies to understand what are society's needs, or the most pressing needs related to each SDG, so that they can react faster and address those needs with policies that are really targeted to citizens. So, as we all know, the Sustainable Development Goals are the blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. But there is a well, we face, as also Beatrice explained, several data challenges to measure them, to see how they are evolving, no? One of them is that we have lack of real-time data. So as Beatrice also explained, many countries get their data through surveys that are usually very costly and time-consuming. They also get data from administrative data or national censuses that they are only published maybe once a year or so on. And actually, real-time data is very valuable for governments, for cities, to react faster, to be able to address those challenges and then come closer to reaching the SDGs by 2030. Another challenge is that some of the goals, and especially some of the indicators, are kind of more subjective, and there is no agreed way or indicator I measure to agree to measure these indicators. They are called Tier 3 indicators. So people don't really know what data to collect, how to approach the measurement of these indicators. Also, as was also mentioned in some of the presentations, problems are very local. So we are all aiming for the same SDGs to achieve the same level of wellness, but the problems that every city and every country faces related to those SDGs is very related to their context, right? So if we are speaking about improving health, the health problems that we face maybe in Europe are not the same problems that we face in sub-Saharan Africa, for instance. And we all need to address these different problems. So we need to look at local problems as well. And finally, so if the aim of the SDGs are to leave no one behind, it is more important than ever to put citizens' voices at the very center of the conversation and to see what are real citizens' needs. But this is hard to get. So, oopsie. Sorry. At CityBits, we believe that citizens' voices are a great approach to overcome some of these challenges. And how do we see or focus on this? So every day, as we said, millions and millions of citizens are sharing and expressing their opinions through the internet, on the social media. They are using participatory channels or platforms like Collab to reach their governments or cities to express what works, what doesn't work, what do they need, what are cities' challenges. And all this is shared instantly. And we can have access to it also instantly. So all these opinions shared online could overcome the challenge of the lack of immediate or real-time data. Then, regarding more subjective indicators that have been thought to measure some of the SDGs, those are very subjective. And actually, citizens' voices are also subjective. They are a matter of perception, right? And by using this alternative data source, this may help us overcome some of the subjectivity challenge that present some of these Tier 3 indicators. And finally, if we thought that it is very important to adapt or to understand the local problems that every city, that every country is facing, what is more local than a citizen's voice expressing like, this doesn't work in my city, this should be improved, and so on. So that's why we believe that it is very important to listen to citizens, to gather their opinions, to overcome some of these data challenges that we face when measuring the SDGs. So here's an example that citizens' voices are very rich in context, in emotion, and they are able to move us. I just picked a collection of 3 tweets in Buenos Aires, and Mexico, and Bogota. It's all Spanish, but in the first one, they are complaining about how the city of Buenos Aires is refurbishing a bridge to try to make it nicer, but underneath the bridge, there are several families with children living homeless. So, and they are asking the city, what do you prefer? What are you doing? Are you just polishing the infrastructure, but are you not taking care of poor families? Then in Mexico, there's these other citizen suggesting to us not look also only at monetary poverty, but to also look into fuel poverty that many families may face in Mexico when they are not able to pay for their bills. Right? And finally, there is this third citizen in Bogota complaining about air pollution and asking if the city council is ready to fight this or not. So these opinions are super concrete, and they are shared every day through through very different platforms. And we believe that we could make use of them to as an alternative data source to measure the development of the SDGs. So, and that's what we believe, that citizens' voices are actually the best sensors of social problems, and that's why it is important that we take them into account. But, and here comes the interesting part, how can we include, I don't know if you can see it here, how can we include these voices as an alternative data source to measure the sustainable development goals? So first of all, we've got all these millions of opinions that are shared, that express different local problems, and they also are expressed in different languages. So CTBit's artificial intelligence models, what it does is it understands the topics that are related to these SDGs that adapt over time and to every city and to different languages, and analyzes it to produce some results that we call real-time citizen watch on the SDGs that are very easy to understand. They are presented in a very visual way so that policymakers can understand what their citizens are talking about, and they can react faster and design more targeted policies. If I explain it, I can explain it again some other way. So, how do we do this? We collect all these opinions that are shared through different channels. For instance, social media like Twitter or Facebook. We also collect data from participatory channels that through apps that the different city councils have, or through some emails. There are some email addresses where you can contact your city council, this is not working, this should be improved, etc. We analyze it with our artificial intelligence model that it is based on deep learning and natural language processing, and then we produce easy-to-use results that also can be sent to the different departments of a city council, for instance, so that they can take action. And now I'll present a real project that we've been working on, and I'll show you how we do all these 3 steps to produce some insightful results. So we have been working with the Observatorio de la Rábida de Desarrollo Sostenible y Cambio Climático para Iberoamérica, that is the Observatory for Climate Change and Sustainable Development for Iberoamérica, which takes Central and South American countries, Spain, Portugal, and Andorra as well, to put citizens' voices at the very center of the Sustainable Development Goals. And our project coordinator, she's also sitting there, Rosa Castizo, has come to see our presentation today. So the stakeholders of that project, as I said, is this observatory, and the objective of the project was to localize the 2030 agenda on these countries and to try an alternative source of providing a ground truth for measuring the Sustainable Development Goals. That is, so we have the official indicators for the Sustainable Development Goals, but we want to check with citizens' opinions how these are doing as well, like how citizens are perceiving that the problems related to the Sustainable Development Goals are evolving or being solved. Finally, we also want to try to provide a real-time view of the evolving citizens' needs and support governments to take evidence-based actions to solve them. This project was implemented in 22 capital cities of 22 countries in that area. Oopsie. So, let's go to the first step, that's data collection. We collected data from, in this case, from Twitter. We collected more than 1 million tweets during 6 months, from March to August 2019. And that was applied, as I said, to 22 cities. These are some examples of the tweets. Then we come to the analysis. As we already said before, problems are very local. Despite so for every SDG, we can find different local problems that cities and governments, either cities and countries, are facing. So for instance, for goal number 1, which is no poverty, in London, people may be worried about rough sleepers, so homeless people, while in Sao Paulo, people are concerned about the state of favelas, right? But they are all related to the same goal, which is no poverty. Another example would be goal 5, that's gender equality. in Buenos Aires, people are fighting or are very concerned about feminicide and abortion rights, while on the other side of the Atlantic, in Madrid, society will be fighting for to reduce the pay gap and to end some very cruel group rape cases that happened during last year. Also, further examples, Sustainable Development Goal, SDG11 about sustainable cities and communities, we can also find very different problems around the world. In Lima, the citizens may be worried about air pollution and traffic congestions, while in Barcelona, people will be demanding more cycle lanes and other sustainable mobility options. And finally, just to end on Goal 13, which is climate action, Mexican citizens may be demanding a transition to green energies, while people in Barcelona will be asking for more recycling programs, for instance. So the thing is that we've got all these different problems related to the same SDGs, but how do we capture them? How do we understand what people are talking about and put them in the same, or categorize them to the same SDGs? So this is how it works. For example, for goal number 5, gender equality, we want to know what people are talking about, what people are worried about, if people are worried about sexism behaviors, or if they promote feminism activities, or if they are talking about equality in the labor market related to salaries, etc. So we create a model with these words that are here at the very center, and this model is able to adapt to every city. Oopsie, sorry. And this model adapts to the comments that are every city. What we want to capture is what people are talking around these words, even though they are using different words, right? So for the city of Buenos Aires, we will use these general concepts for gender equality, and the artificial intelligence model that we've programmed will understand other words and comments that are being used to talk around these topics. For instance, feminicide, or the hashtags of Nos quiero vivas y ni una menos that were very popular during that time, trying to fight this problem. They will also be talking about legal abortion and domestic violence. But for instance, that same model for the city of Madrid, with those same words that we used, will be capturing different types of comments, like the group rape case that happened 2 years ago by a group called La Manada, or the 8th of March women's strike that was very popular in a lot of Spanish cities. So I don't know if that was clear or not, or you can ask me questions later, but that same model can capture the different topics that have been, that people are talking about in the different cities. And
2 minutes left.
All right, sorry. So, and finally, I will show you some of the results that we present so that cities are, or entities are able to respond faster of that same project. Whoopsie. Right. So this is a summary of the conversation volume for every sustainable development goal in the Iberoamerica region. We can see that goal 3, which is health, was the most talked about. And then we wanted to look at a little deeper and to understand what issues were worrying the citizens in the different countries. So for instance, in Mexico, during the summer, there was an episode of a lack of medicines in hospitals, and people were demonstrating to ask for decent medical attention. So that came out, while in Lima, people were worried about the negative health effects of air pollution. We can also look at what was the top priority for every country in Latin America. We can see that health was the most popular topic in Mexico, Honduras, Nicaragua, and other countries. Poverty instead in Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay. And people from Venezuela, Peru, and Argentina were more worried about problems related to sustainable cities and communities. We could also look at the relative importance of Goal 13, climate action, and see the intensity of the color is the importance that this topic was to the citizens of the different countries. I'm just going very fast, but we can share the results with you later. And we could also zoom into one city and see how it compares to the entire region. So for instance, these graphs, the blue bars are the volume of conversation for Bogota, while the red points is the average for Latin America. And we can see how Bogota compares to the rest of the region, right? So and how do we see the future? So what we want is that people's voices drive UN decisions to improve and to reach the Sustainable Development Goals. We want to include citizens' voices in every city to measure and benchmark recommended local actions to reach those goals. We want to become a UN standard for collecting alternative data sources that can help build some of these indicators and that can help react faster to achieve the SDGs. And finally, we also want to help measure the performance of Goal 11 related to sustainable and cities and communities, so that to capture citizens' engagement in different participatory events. And that was it from my part.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
So super, now we've heard from UN Habitat, we've heard from Collab and City Beats, two companies from the private sector. So now we're going to complete the puzzle, and we're going to hear from Gabriela Ochoa from Municipality of Teresina in Brazil.
Hi, I am Gabriela Ochoa from the Municipality of Teresina. I'll talk a bit about innovation for urban resilience and how we were managing to implement the Sustainable Development Goals in my city. First, I will tell a bit about my city. I think this is interesting because many of times that you see best practices for city, many of them are cities that we can really relate with, so are bigger and rich and full of capacities. And my city is not quite in this scenario. You were in a city where multiple vulnerabilities overlaps. And even though we want to show that it's possible to build a more resilient and sustainable future there. So my city, I'm Gabriela Ochoa from Teresina in the northeast of Brazil. We're in a city that's about 860,000 inhabitants in a metropolitan area of 1.2 million inhabitants. We are in a relative poor area of Brazil. We're the second poorest state of Brazil. Our GDP per capita is pretty much like above. Now the dollar raised like a lot in Brazil now this month, so I think we're about like $6,000 per capita. But despite that, we're a regional reference for health and educational services in the Brazilian hinterlands. Oops. Geographically, we say like our Alton introduces, Teresina shines under the equator sun. So we are really close to the equator, at 5 degrees below the equator. Indeed, maybe too much because we have been suffered a lot with climate change during the last century. So my city is located here, one of the areas that most warm in the last 100 years. So we are warming the average twice the global average. And if you see the inhabited part of the world, we are in a really vulnerable region regarding climate change and global warming. So we are now in a semi-arid tropical climate that we are not before, with high temperatures, low humidity. The city is getting hotter and hotter. Like the last years, we got like even worse situation compared to other years. And those are our prospects. When I was born, you used to have about 260 days above 32 degrees. We're coming like for a state average, like before the 80s. And after the 80s, we start to have a really fast increase in the number of very hot days. So nowadays, we can expect more than 322 days of very hot days per year. And we're going to reach, like by when I am 80, we're going to probably have like the whole year of very hot days. This is it's going to be very hard for our citizens. And like other Brazilian cities, we have like a really fast urban sprawl during the rural urban migration in the 80s and the 90s, and the city's resource could not cope with that. No. Okay. The fleet evolution was like also really high. Like so, you end up like in 10 days, you increase like from 100,000 vehicles to 400,000 vehicles in 10 years. But we are making our effort to build resilience. Like you have like more. Okay. Yes, first like reducing vulnerability. So nowadays you have a program to be the best basic educations among Brazilian cities. Nowadays you are the best public educations among Brazilian capitals. We raised a lot of positions in the last 10 years. According to the national government, we have a really comprehensive projects to reduce to deal with climate adaptations, reducing floods and in the North Lake projects. It includes disaster risk reduction, drainage, sanitation, house environmental protection in 40 neighborhoods in the city. This is the situation before, the situation nowadays in the program first phase, and the program second phase. I will just pass by, and promoting the shift to more sustainable urban mobility and land use with the new BRT system and the new urban master plan with a transit-oriented development, urban densification towards a more compact city. And supporting clean, renewable, sustainable energy with one of the first cities to do new public-electric and public-private partnerships, energy efficient private partnerships in all the buildings of the municipal all the municipal public buildings, and a project for clean energy to build the municipal photovoltaic solar power plants to provide clean energy for all the municipal public buildings. And also the Solaris project to train young vulnerable population to install photovoltaic panels. And setting up the Teresina 2030 strategy, that's the one that I want to focus in here. That's a strategy to localize SDGs in Teresina and other Brazilian cities. So we started our strategy to think about what can smart cities bring to us, like in a scenario that we don't have much resources, what it can leverage to make our development more oriented, to shape our policies, with evidence-based programs and information. And we started this partnership with the Open Data Institute to collect and work with data and different development sectors. And we started to migrate this to the SDGs because one of the things that we see when you are working with smart solutions and data and public policies is that we have a lot of noise in that. And the most important thing is to have a clear goal where you are going, what you want to look forward. And we don't need to invent our goals. We don't need to invent a strategy to go forward because the world collectively already set the goals. That's the Sustainable Development Goals. So we're going to localize the Sustainable Development Goals and to monitor these goals in our city. So for that, we start to produce databases to monitor at local level the Sustainable Development Goals, to build capacity inside the city hall, to provide better data, to provide the inputs to our monitoring, and also to build capacity in the citizenship to work with us in monitoring this data and also developing civic solutions alongside the municipality. And the results that we have built a strategy with 264 actions to deliver on the SDGs that we monitor the implementation of all of these actions by SDGs. Nowadays, we have 47 ongoing actions, 34% are already completed actions. We start this program on 2017, but we still have 18% to deliver on it. And also to monitoring the SDGs indicator at local level. So we have 122 indicators to monitor at the local level. So far, we have a goal for this year to monitor 70 indicators, and you already are collecting 57 of the 122. We're just 5 left to reach the goal for this year. And all of the data that we are collecting, we provide to the citizenship in an open format, so we have more than 46 interactive maps that the city can see how the districts are performing according to each SDGs. We have more than 3,000 monthly access on our maps. That's quite a lot compared to other cities' platforms. That's our city platforms, a partnership with Carto, that we run our observatory free of charge inside the platform. And we have more than 20 departments involved in producing these databases and maps and etc. And with this information and with this monitoring and with these indicators that we're assessing and analyzing, we are creating new projects to bridge this gap to deliver on the SDGs that we consider that are strategic. So one of the projects is the Horta Judicial project. We got the first prize, City for People International Urban Development Prize by the Inter-American Development Bank. It's a very comprehensive project with a 4 kilometers urban gardens and a new mobility master plan for the city. We focus on people and public transportation. The Euroclima Observatory of Mobility using open innovation process that are using blockchain, but it was an open innovation process to have a better and more transparency in the public transportation. We have a better governance project inside the City Hall with the Teresina Open Data Master Plan, the Teresina, the improvement of our observatory or climate action plan. The Horizon 2020 project that's Move Teresina. Teresina is the only city outside Europe that is implementing this project. It's a gamification app to reward the citizens that make more sustainable health mobility choice. We have the project that's Complete Streets on Demand. So the city prepares some kind of books, these kits that the people can reimagine the city and demand for the municipality to implement this new street on the areas if they are agreed in the consensus. So we are in a partnership with the local universities, so the cities can make a proposal for the cities and they can experiment the new street in virtual reality so they can be better convinced, because that's one problem that we have implementing complete streets without this engagement with the citizens. 1 Month for Climate Teresina is a program of empowerment of rural girls for climate action with the partnership of UN Habitat and the Embassy of the Netherlands. The Teresina Resilience Program, that's a broader strategy with the support of UN Habitat to develop an action plan with strategies to build a more resilient city. And other comprehensive project funded by the French Development Agency, that's Teresina 2030 Meeting the Goals. It's also a comprehensive project to bridge that other 18% gap that we have to deliver on our goals. We have a GEF funded project to build a low carbon emission zone in Teresina and Timon. That's a neighbor city, so they are connected by their city centers. And we have this project to build the low carbon zone in Teresina and Timon. And the Living Lab Teresina, that is a civic innovation lab where the municipality opened the challenges to work collaboratively with the citizens to produce projects and resources dedicated to mitigate climate change, especially in extreme hot weather. And we have other space to engage with the citizenship, like you have many partnerships with Collab here, that we have tailored public service and consultancy. We have many space that we can discuss and bring people inside the city hall to discuss our goals, and that's what our concept of smart city that we apply. That all of our projects, all of the projects that we show, we have these three core principles. That is, we work with open government in idea of stimulate transparency, data-driven, evidence-based decision-making, and make use of communication participation. So many of that project that you saw, we run at workshops, we run at public consultancies, strategies. That our idea of smart cities is connected citizen and government, and using technologies to make this connection, sharing responsibilities and monitoring the sustainable development. So, for example, in the Observatory of Mobility, using transparency to improve public mobility. And resilience and sustainability, that is to achieve a better status of resilience and sustainability in the urban, rural area. And our main takeout is that seek creative solutions for the city. It's trying to adapt solutions that cities that have cooler temperature and they are wealthy is not the right approach for us in the short term. We need to find our own solutions for cities with the same kind of vulnerabilities of my city. Strengthen the 2030 agenda as a transformative role in the city planning, increasing cooperation of global institutions. So aligning with 2030 agenda is strategically to increase cooperation. We want to turn Teresina a success case for urban climate resilience that can be replicated globally, and raising awareness and creating efforts to make urban climate resilience a priority of the population that we still don't have it. And that's it. Thank you.
Super. Okay, thanks so much, Gabriela. Thanks to all of our speakers. We have about 20 minutes left for Q&A. So I will ask a first question, and then, okay, while everyone gets ready with their questions, we'll start opening up. So I would like to hear from you. So you're all starting to pioneer these new approaches. It would be great to hear what's been the feedback inside of both United Nations, local governments, and for you guys, what's been the feedback from your clients, the people that you're giving this data to?
Should we start like this?
Anyone who wants to take it, yeah.
Okay. Well, for the project and the consultation that we have, the budget and the capital that we had, it's very little in terms of what we want to do. The project has three main outcomes. One is the consultation, that this year we also started the consultation in Bolivia and in Peru. We partnered with a Mexican startup in terms of language issues, so now we have it in Spanish. The consultation and the questions are the same, and the idea is that we can compare not only among Brazil, but also with Bolivia and in Peru, and we're aiming to do it even globally if it's possible. The second outcome is the monitoring of the action plans that we developed since 2017 till now. And the third outcome, which is very important to say, there are two ways of reporting. One is a national level. All the governments are committed to report at national level, but we are also aiming to report at the local level. Because of all the things that we already explained and all the things that are happening on the ground, it is necessary to report at the local level. So we're working with the cities, and we're doing it in a participatory way, that we're aiming to present the local reports of all the cities that we're working in Latin America in February, or at least the first draft in February. And we're using different data sources of the consultation that we had in Collab, as consultations or programs that the municipalities are already working on, as Gabriela explained, using social media, as Laura explained, and we're trying to present, of course, quality data, but in a different way that could be cheaper and that could present more the things that are happening on the ground. So the project has been really good. The consultation was presented and the United Nations Innovation Network as one of the initiatives that is boosting innovation and how can you scale up the things with very little resources. And we are also working, as Gustavo said, we deliver books to the mayors of the cities. And we have very good answers and very good responses of how they are planning to use this data that we're collecting and to use it for tailored public policies in the cities.
Amazing. Okay. And I don't know if anyone else wants to build on that. It would be really interesting to hear, within every organization, when you're trying to launch something new, there are always champions who are trying to help you and back these new approaches, and there are kind of barriers, detractors as well. So to hear a bit of both sides of what's been the response.
So one thing that has happened is that it's very hard to engage citizens when you are talking about giving them getting and giving more information about their cities, for example. So for you to respond to the consultation in Collab, it takes around 15 to 20 minutes. So it takes a long time for you if you really want to respond to that. So it's very hard to engage people. So last year we did we started with an ambassadors program that we brought around almost 200 young people all over Brazil to actually to ask people and to try to bring more people into the platform. This year we started last month and now we have almost 400, so more than twice what we had before. So it's great how people are actually seeing this and trying to work with this, to engage. At the same time, it's very nice when we deliver, for example, the book to mayors. And I've met some of the mayors again. So I met once and I gave the book, and then 1 month later I met the same mayor again, and he or she would come to me and say, "Whoa, that's I read the whole book and it's incredible." And so we are taking a lot of different actions in our city to respond to that. And so it's very nice how, in 1 year we already started doing a lot and
Very
getting
cool.
a lot from people.
And it's a great pitch for the book as well. So anyone who wants to have it afterwards. So I don't know, Gabriela and Laura, if you want to answer that question, or we go to one from the audience.
Yes, okay. Are you hearing me? No?
Try again.
Hola? Okay,
Yeah.
now it's working, right? I think by the municipality side, I would I would take many challenges to speak about, but I think when you work especially with innovative strategies, in the municipality you face a lot of challenges regarding the bureaucracy of the public system itself. So it's really hard to come up with new strategies, because everything that you do as a government needs to be backed by law. So especially in Brazil, you have but I think a lot of cities face the same problem worldwide. You have some constraints when you do a more agile project or some innovative idea, but you have a lot of room for improvement. I think one of the greatest things that you can do to overcome this challenge is work with partnerships. That's why many of our projects we have another partners, and also in your cities that you don't you lack funding to your project or the technical capacity. Having these strategic partnerships can support you sometimes with some funds, but sometimes you don't need funds, you need technical capacity, so you can partner with institutions like the UN Habitat that can provide great technical capacity for the team, and also the symbolic capital that can make your projects reach the society. And also strategic partnerships also with private sector. We have a good partnership with Collab in Teresina that support us running some public surveys, and also all of the data that is input by the citizens we can work with them, like they are published in a public API, so citizenship can also work with it. And the other resource is the citizenship itself. So if you have a good relationship with your citizens, you can work collaboratively with them. Sometimes it's hard when you are in the public sector to have a good relationship with the citizens. I say that when you are in the public service, you are like you have the original sin. You are guilty since the beginning. So when you are going to talk with the society, you have a good project. You are just started in the work in the public service. You have a good project. Want to talk to the community to make a collaborative project. The first thing that they're going to look at you and say like, no, I don't sit with the municipality. I don't talk with the municipality. They are wrong. They want to do something, and they are like behind the walls. They are trying to come up with something. So you always have this trust barrier.
Okay.
And it took us like this 2 years to build trust with the society. And nowadays you have workshops that are full of people. You have projects that were working in cooperation of civil society. But this is a great barrier.
Very interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
Laura, you want to add?
Yeah, just two things to mention on our relationship with clients, and that sometimes it can be a first barrier, but then it becomes something that they welcome very much, is that it first may look like a business intelligence platform. They already have public sector, that's our main client, they already have lots of graphs and numbers that tell us what their statistics says, but what we provide them is also with insights, with stories. So we explain those graphs and go to the point that what's the story behind that graph? What is the problem that is worrying citizens? Why do we observe a pike in that problem? What tells us? What does the data really tells us? So this is something that they are welcoming very much because it helps them understand what is the story behind the data. And then on the other hand, it also provides, it's also a way to allow voices that may not be present in the usual participatory channels. So maybe there are some citizens that are just tired of going to vote, or that are disconnected from some more traditional participatory channels. And by taking the millions of opinions that are expressed widely and publicly on the internet, this is the way also to capture voices that may not be heard, and this way they can also be included. And this is something that the public sector is also very interested in reaching these different groups. So.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So we have 10 minutes left. Let's see, how many questions are there in the audience? Okay, there's like 5 questions. So please ask the question fast, and please, whoever wants to answer it fast, and we'll try and do all
Sure.
5. So we're going to go, put your hands up again. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay?
The microphone is there.
And there's a mic here.
Okay, it's working.
Hello. Nice talk, all of you. Congratulations for the work. I am from Brazil, from Bright Cities. And what we do, we collect data from Brazil and all over North America and other countries too. We really saw that it's very difficult for the politics and the municipality to get all the data, because you have to have a very specialized team in the technology to get some indicators. What we did, we got the indicators from the goals for the millennium, and from ISO 37122, that's about smart cities. So we got 160 indicators that are in this area. So I think our work really completes and all of the works that were presented, because we really saw that sometimes in the same government they don't share data. And to plan a city, to get better results, you have to plan and get to know your results, what you have in a city, how many people are poor, how many people need sanitation, or what you are losing in water. For example, in Brazil, we have a lot of water, natural, how can I say, resources. And so water there, especially in northeast part, is very losing. So we have this data, and we really would like to collaborate. And how could we do that with, for example, the project of Beatriz?
Okay, so I think that's maybe that one can be saved for after, because it was like an introduction to your company. So why don't you? What I could suggest is that all the speakers hang around after the talk for people, so you can connect and then you can discuss. So let's go to the next question.
Hi, thank you for your presentations. I have some difficult questions. First of all, to what extent the bottom-up decision-making are accepted or adopted by the politicians?
So what extent is the to what extent is the bottom-up accepted by the politicians?
Yes.
Okay.
The second question is, did you make any steps to persuade politicians to engage with their local citizens or mayors, yes, or other managers of different departments in the same municipality? My third question is, what is the ratio of citizens that are participate really in all these discussions?
Okay, so given that we have a few questions, can you pick one of three? They're all interesting. What about the first? The first one sounds good.
The first one, okay, let it be.
So the question was, to what extent is bottom-up input accepted from the top down? You want to take that one?
Yeah, well, at least in the project that we're doing in Latin America, we're trying to do everything like bottom up, you know. And I can briefly answer the three questions in 2 minutes. For instance, in Iteroy, we did an activity called the SDG Week, and we did all the people from the different areas of the municipality worked together and created multitask teams, and they developed a new project activity for the municipality in collaboration with the citizens. So for instance, if the challenge was climate change, there were people from the area of climate change, but there were also people from the area of treasury, and you know, like to make it more feasible, the project that they were trying to present, and also to exchange this data and all the activities that are going on, that sometimes the communication is not very well among the stakeholders. In terms of every time that we have workshops with citizens, we try to bring representative of neighborhoods and people that can, after that, go and talk to the people that they are working with. So it's very strategic, the people that we choose, because we cannot have a workshop with everybody, but we try to have people from all the different sectors. And in terms of how well received the things that we're working on are from it depends about the political will, and it depends about each city. For instance, at the moment, with all the situation that is facing in Bolivia, the project in Bolivia, it's stopped, and we cannot do anything because of all the external factors that we have. We also had an activity from 2017 till beginning of 2019, we were working with people in the municipalities of Chimbote and Trujillo in Peru, and they were very keen on doing all the activities and all the things, but then there were elections, and now they changed, and now all the things that we worked from 2017 till beginning of 2019, we needed to start again, and we needed to convince the people, and it's a long process that it takes time, and sometimes the results are not as good as we would like to, but sometimes the things can also work, and we can have this wall coming from the top bottom to the bottom-up approaches that are merging.
Great. Okay, I think maybe we can do one last question. So I think we had one hand over here. Sorry to the other two people.
The microphone.
Hello. My question is really specific for CTVs about the machine learning process.
Okay.
Okay. So how do you choose the keywords? Like you show La Manada, for instance, it's a keyword about gender equality, but in Spain and not in another country. So how do you go from machism, or a more general word, to a very specific keyword? How do you pick them?
So in that case, I don't know if it's working. Yeah. So in that case, la manada would not be seed. We call them seed words. That is palabra semilla, but it could also be called a keyword. So in that case, la manada is not one of those keywords. The keywords that we use are more general. They are related to the topic that we are investigating. We think of words that are very popular, that are usually very used, and that could represent the category, and then the algorithm, the natural language processing and deep learning algorithm that we have will connect, so it is a bit difficult to understand. But the thing is that there are connections between the words, so there are probabilities of one word being connected to the other, and then depending of how strong this connection it is, then it learns that this other word belongs to that category. A very easy example would be with cycle lanes. For instance, if we, in the category of mobility, if we use the word cycle, but we won't use the word lane, right? But the algorithm will see that in many of the documents, in many tweets maybe, people are speaking about cycle lanes are very dangerous, or there is not enough cycle lanes, so it will understand that this topic belongs to mobility as well. I don't know if it solved your question.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, so thanks everyone. Thanks to all the speakers for really interesting talks. Thanks for listening and interesting questions. And I suggest that if you want to talk afterwards, we can hang around here a little bit, and then when the next talk comes on, we can move over there if people want to continue talking.
Thank you.